Hi, thanks for coming along. Checking out episode 38 of FreshAirAtFive, the podcast. This week's episode features lots of great guests and people. I don't know guests, but the listening that I do, they're all guests to me in my head as I'm walking and listening and reflecting and learning. And, I'm titling this one this week called Wizards and Magic. And you'll see why when you get to the very end of it. So listen to the end if you could, because I have a whole thing there that I talk about as I reflect on the very last one on Friday, September 24th today. And so you listen to the end, please. It's fantastic. And I just wanted to thank you for coming and listening right now. And so here we go, stepping into the intro. Bye-bye.
I'm Lance Key, co-host of Get Inspired and Innovate, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Bryon Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at FreshAirAtFive or check out my website, BryonCarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected.
Hey, PLN, September 20th, 2021. Today is Canadian Election Day for the federal election. So go out and vote. Not voted? Get out there and vote. You got to vote, people. Can't have a say if you don't vote. So that's our democratic right here in Canada and around the world in different places. So go vote. Okay, that's my PSA about voting. This morning out on Fresh Air at 5, I am out walking. It is beautiful out and it's a good start to a new week. What a full time it's been. We've been going for now 2 weeks and lots of things going on since Labor Day in school with accounts and students getting rolling and new students into our school for learning, in our Moodle system, etc., etc. Lots and lots going on. This morning, I was privileged to hear my friend Jen Giffen on Shooks and Giff podcast, season 5. That's number 5, people. Season 5, episode 1. So Jen, it's so good to hear you. Kim, still missing you, but we understand. A whole lot is going on in our lives. And Jen, thanks for not moving on without Kim, but with her blessing and bringing us some itty bitty bonanza. So this morning I listened to 12 awesome little nuggets of news from the EdTech world that she brought. And Jen, thank you so much for all of them. I like things like name drop, because people pronounce my name wrong because it's spelt weird. And, so that's kind of cool. And the one about finding a book, that's great. And the one about the art, I think that's going to be fantastic to show students how AI can be powerful, that it can help do creations for us and bring some new understanding to different things. And art teachers can use this to show different genres. I haven't looked at it, but I will look at it and I'm going to pass it along. So super excited about that. And there's so many other good things in here that I'm going to have to do. Like that hack for how to download YouTube videos on the down low. We'll see how that goes. But just a little tips. Thanks, Jen. Happy Monday. Bye-bye. One more thing for September 20th, 2021. I wrapped up my walk this morning by listening to the backstory to a book that has just been released by George Couros called Because of a Teacher, #Because of a Teacher. And George, I was walking along, listening, enjoying, reveling in the past and thinking about those teachers that have made a difference for me. You recently had me on your podcast to answer those 3 questions also, and it was a great privilege to be able to do shout outs to 3 actually, it was 4 people that have helped me on my journey through, I don't know, it was the 3 questions you asked plus an extra. And it was fantastic to be able to do that for myself. And now I just come across on the socials, on Twitter, that you have a book called Because of a Teacher. I was like, this is interesting. And then this morning out on my walk, I listened to this podcast, season 2, episode 37, called #Because of a Teacher, behind the scenes of the Innovators Mindset podcast and the 3 questions that you ask. And George, I really enjoyed listening to you read aloud your introduction to the book. I am going to go and get the book. People, you should go get the book. It is an inspiring collection, and I haven't even read it. And I'm already saying it's fantastic because it is fantastic. Just to hear George talk about Mr. Bunny Ears and talk about teachers believing him that he's going to be on stage one day. And also, that you have to earn the privilege of being a captain. Those things, those are like powerful things. And what do we do every day in our classes? We talk to children. We talk to students. We inspire them. And are we making a difference? I better believe that we're making a difference. Do we feel it every day? No, we don't. But you know what? This book is an opportunity was the opportunity for 52 different educators to tell their story and to shout out to those people. So thanks, George, for compiling this. I'm going to go get it, and I'll put the link in the tweet. Have a great day. Bye-bye. One more thing for September 20th, 2021. This afternoon, I had to hit the road, so while I was out on the road, I listened to, check this out, episode 141 with Ryan O'Donnell and Brian Briggs. And gentlemen, thank you. It's good to see you back. Your title of your episode is Are We Back? Well, you are back, and it was over in June, but now you're back. So it's super great to hear from you and the shares that you shared, and the humor and the laughs, and it was so great. So thanks for making me smile while I'm out on the road. And people, you should go listen to Ryan and Brian because they got something to say, and it's worth a listen. I'm still digging Adobe Spark. I'm a Spark guy, and so I am going to have to, you're talking about the animations, Ryan, as you were talking about the new features in Spark, and you have to use, there's an animations tab, I think, on the right-hand side that allows you to animate your text and things like that, and I've been using that, so that's super great for some social media stuff. I'm going to teach my students some of that this year, and it's all great. My EdTech Bundle, check out My EdTech Bundle, and that's coming out of Pennsylvania area with Eric Geis and Nick Johnson and another dude, so I can't remember his name, but they've got that website, and so you got to check out My EdTech Bundle. It's a way to get longer trials than the quick short trials, so you can sign up for things and pay a little bit of money to get a longer version of a trial. I have no idea how the guys did that magic, but it's magical, and so I am going to sign myself up here soon. So shout out to Eric and Nick and Got Tech, the podcast. All right. And Jen Giffen, you had a shout out to Jen Giffen. That was awesome as well. I just listened to her podcast this morning. So she's got an episode that just came out with Kim Polishuk, but Kim Polishuk is out of the picture right now, but for a little bit. And there's Jen Giffen as well. All right. Great to see you guys and hear from you. Well, not see you, but hear from you. I'm going to check out the show notes for the details on some of the stuff you said. Take a listen. Check this out. E141. Peace out. Bye. Hey, PLN Tuesday, September 21, 2021. It is a Tuesday morning, and I'm out for FreshAirAtFive this morning, getting started this morning on my podcast listening. I listened to the Ignite EdTech podcast with Craig Kemp out of Singapore, and it was great to hear Craig talk about formative engagement and student engagement using authentic audiences on this episode in his thought. And then he talked to, I think it was Andrew Mullet, but maybe I'm wrong on the first name, and he is a co-founder of EduSpark World, which is a project and a Prodi platform that Craig is involved in, as well in his space. So it was great to hear Andrew talk and share his wisdom about neuroscience and learning, because that's his background, and how we engage adult learners. Something that was curious to me was that he said that, we teach adults and teachers the ways that we shouldn't teach our students. So why is that? Why do we do that? And how can we grow our understanding of andragogy, adult learning, and bring it in line with pedagogy? Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Andrew, for your work and for sharing. And I look forward to the next episode of Ignite EdTech Podcast. Take a listen. Talk to you soon. Bye. One more thing for September 21, 2021, and as I'm wrapping up my walk, the second half of my walk, I got to listen to Che and Pav on the Staff Room Podcast, episode 95, as they talked about their learning that they have done about empathy maps, and how empathy maps are a way to get to know their students in their classroom. It was came out of some work that they had seen on Edutopia that George Venezuela had written a blog about, and they decided to implement this past week in their classroom spaces as a get-to-know-you tool. And so they on there were asking the students to map out some of who they are, so that as a teacher and fellow students they could get to know one another in their classroom space and do that. So that's fantastic to hear. I have tried something maybe not as intentional as that, but using what I'm learning to be an edu protocol that has been developed called Thin Slides, where you take and you give a collaborative slide deck and have the students find a slide and put their name on it and put some content about themselves on that. I did this last week with my grade 9s and 10s, and I learned a lot of things about my grade 9s and 10s. I asked them, what their favorite kinds of foods were. I asked them what they created during the summer. I asked them to do a number of different things, and there's technical things that are going along with that they have to use text boxes and they're using the technology. But from that, I get to learn about my students. So it's really important that we do this. Back when I was in my PDP program at Simon Fraser University, we had mathematical thinking for teachers. It wasn't a math course, but it was about the SEL of math. And we had a math journal where we had to write down how we felt about different parts of the math problem, our struggles, our emotions. And this is one way that we can maybe do this in our classroom with our students. Keep it real. Thanks, Che and Pav. Have a good day. Bye. Hey, PLN, Wednesday, September 23rd, and today marks the first day of spring here where I live. It'll start at about 12:33 in the afternoon, so I'm excited about that because it's not spring. I just said spring. First day of fall, so we're ending summer and moving into fall. Wow, man, I'm in the wrong half of the year. I wish it was spring because I really like spring and I like summer, and I'm not so crazy about winter, so that's why fall. Maybe that's why it slipped up. But anyhow, so hey, happy first day of fall coming up. It's a beautiful day where I am. It's supposed to be clear and sunny today, so that's great. And we're hitting into the rainy season here, and fortunately we don't get a lot of snow, but it is winter and wet here on the wet coast. All right, so this morning early, right out of the gates, I listened to episode 9 of Control Alt Achieve with Eric Kurtz, and Eric brings us magnetic poetry for Halloween, and he has templates for Halloween magnetic poetry that he has provided and created and sharing, and it's so fantastic. I think I'm gonna get my middle school students to do this. I've got a group of middle school students that are low digital literacy wise, and this will be a fun task that they can do some creation in a controlled environment. And yes, I'm looking forward to seeing what they create, so we'll have some content. Thanks, Eric, for bringing this to us now in September, at the end of September, so that we can start thinking about this before October, and we're rushing into the end of it and so busy with all other activities. All right, take a listen to Eric's post and go check out his template for magnetic fridge poetry for Halloween. All right, talk to you soon. One more thing for this first day of spring, September 23, 2021. I just concluded listening to episode 42 of the Tom Schimmer podcast. And Tom, thank you for bringing us another rich, thoughtful discussion and provocation about a few things. The first being the present as epilogue, and how you use the present and write as though it has already happened as a habit for yourself. And I appreciate you sharing your process. Just to say it and kind of explain it wouldn't be great, but you talked about how you use visualization and write it down to form and change your mindset, which changes our trajectory. So that's an important thing to note. I don't have an efficient or even consistent journaling practice myself, but these kinds of things are important. So I appreciate that. I'm going to think about that through my day and week. You also had Rachel Carrillo Fairchild, who is an English language expert and written some books. And I appreciate the discussion that you had about English language learners and changing the name of them to multi-language learners, so that they have more than one language and they're coming here and not proficient in English, or the language of instruction, I should say, which typically is English in North America. How do we figure out whether they have language deficiencies or learning deficiencies, and how does a language deficiency affect learning and things like that? So it was great to hear that conversation, looking at ongoing assessment so we can help our students be progressive and make progress in our system that we have. And lastly, you talked about part levels on a proficiency scale and having half levels. And so that was great because it talks about having a fewer set of levels to make it clear so that we can make clearer and better judgments of our students. Thanks so much. Have a great day. One more thing for September 23rd, 2021, the last bit about partial levels in a proficiency scale is something that, I have they could be a high 3 or a low 4, and what does it matter if they're in the 4 category? And so, that gets around to me feeling maybe better as an educator, as opposed to, putting kids in a category and being mindful of how we are putting them in a proficiency scale category. So Tom, this is something that I have struggled with, and I'm going to say it out here, that rubrics are not my favorite thing. They're something that I don't understand. I understand them a bit, but as far as putting them into practice and writing them, that is something that I am not good at yet, and I need to work on that. So this has been a provocative conversation about levels in proficiency scales and how we use them. So my district is using the 4-point scale for developing. I can't even say the words because I don't use it sufficiently myself. So I need to get better at that. I am developing in my understanding of proficiency scales. And so, yes, okay, so that's me just being brutally honest there. And I will work on this and try to understand it. But yeah, I get the point of having too many levels and taking a 4-point scale and putting the 0.5s in the middle to be able to describe distinctly what those differences are. So that's a great to bring to mind. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Talk to you guys later. Bye. Hey PLN, it's Carpenter here on September 23, 2021. Looking back at my segments prior to this on my recording from yesterday, I said yesterday was the 23rd, but it wasn't. It was only the 22nd. So, when I don't have notes in front of me, my goodness, I get something stuck in my head and I just keep on saying it. So my apologies for that. But today is the 23rd, so don't use me as knowing what day it is if you're listening to my dailies, okay? So, yes, that's what I want to say about that. Okay, so this morning, I'm listening to Aspire to Lead podcast with Josh Stamper, and he has on guest one of my favorite people because of the work that she's done in the past that has made an impact in my life, and I keep on talking about, and I won't stop talking about. It's the work that Sarah Johnson has done with Jessica and Sarah, and how they wrote a book called Bounce Like a Pirate, and it's about work-life balance and making sure that we are whole people. And so, Sarah, thanks so much again. I'm going to say it again. I said it last night. I was on with Craig Kemp out of Singapore talking about my podcast, FreshAirAtFive, and how it was inspired because you talked about taking care of your personal self and how do you do that, and your example of your running and that you've run almost 85,000 days. No, it's not that. It's a little lower, but it's a lot of days and in a row. So, yes, I just wanted to say, so glad to hear your voice again, Sarah. It's been a while, and I keep on, telling and talking about Bounce Like a Pirate. So, people, if you haven't listened to Bounce Like a Pirate, get it. It was great to hear Josh and yourself talk this morning about identity as a leader and how we need to know who we are and not be pushed into being who we are not, and sticking with understanding that and putting boundaries in place. Appreciate you, Sarah. Thank you, Josh, for having her on. I'm going to check out your book, Josh, and your other book, Sarah. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. One more thing for September 23, 2021. I got privileged this morning to listen to the first student interview with George Koros on the Innovator's Mindset podcast. And George, I only got started with the 3 question segment this morning due to time. But next week at the top of episode 39 of Fresh Air at 5, I'm going to put in your longer episode with the student that was the very first to be on your podcast, Deontay Torres. And sorry, Deontay, I said your name wrong, but he is a young man out of Milwaukee who was brought to George's attention by a teacher or an administrator in his school, and has been, well, man, the words he has to say are incredible. So teachers, go take a listen to Deontay's 3 questions, and then further along, which will be great, the interview that he has with George Koros on the Innovator's Mindset podcast. So Deontay, I want to say thank you for being brave and stepping up and putting your voice out there with George. People listen to George, and people are going to be listening to you. And your advice about seeing your classroom as individuals is, that's simple to say, but it's harder to do because we as teachers have our goals and we have our reasons for why we do things, but we can't forget that our students are individuals. And I do my best to do that with my students because I want them to have a say in how things go in my space. I ask them what they would like to learn about. I got the freedom in my media design class to take things in directions that aren't necessarily tied tightly to curriculum. So I find that that's a great way to do that. Also, making learning relevant to students. And so having them know that what we're doing makes a difference for them. And the only way that we can do that is knowing who the students are. So spending time to get to know students and build that relationship, as you say, leverages the students to do work and be productive and to learn about themselves. So I appreciate your message. Thanks, George. Appreciate it so very much. Have a fabulous day, everybody. Talk to you. Bye-bye. One more thing for September 23, 2021. This afternoon, I'm out finishing up the paper route with my daughter and helping my girls out with their work that they have to do. And I took in episode 206 of Teachers on Fire, which was a roundtable discussion that happened on a Saturday morning a while ago. And it featured Becky Keene and Kathy Kursnowski. Sorry for how I pronounced your name if I did that incorrectly, Kathy. Well, along with Tim Cavey, and the 3 of you talked about about how you use Microsoft in education for educational purposes, and talked about your book and the work that you've done in your book called Sailing the 7 Seas of Microsoft Education. So I'm a Google guy, and it was informative to me to hear you talk about these tools and how you can use all the various Microsoft tools. And little did I know, I'm coming into a couple weeks ago, but my colleague at work is going to be giving us an Office 365 work over this coming Friday, as we have professional development to teach us about how to use Office 365 for better and not for worse. So yes, I'm looking forward to learning that. And this Google guy is learning about Microsoft, so I'll be better equipped to do many things at school and in my workspace. Thanks so much for your work that you're doing. Keep it up the good work. And I do agree that if we write a book about the tools and the how-tos, it will be outdated before it's even published. But if we write about the 7 C's, as you talk about, or the 4 C's that I use, or the 5 C's, including curiosity, like Tim talks about, it will serve us very well into the future, because those are verbs and not nouns. Verbs last and nouns do not for very long. All right, thanks so much. Have a great day. Peace out. Happy Thursday. Bye. Hey, PLN, September 24, 2021. It's Friday. You made it to Friday. So excited to be here at Friday. And I'm excited for a few reasons, and I'll get into those as we go here. The first reason is I started thinking about wizards and magic, and like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, and you know how he's got his magic, and he impresses the crew and takes care of them with his magic and all that kind of stuff. But do they ever get to see how he conjures his magic, where it comes from, where he gets the ideas, where, all those kinds of things? Or is it all a secret? And what I like about the podcast that I listen to is I listen to a lot of wizards that talk about the magic that they do. And in the process of talking about that magic, many of those wizards share how they conjure that magic. And so this morning, as I went walking, I listened to, and I don't even know the episode number, I think it's the first proper episode of season maybe 4 or 5 of the Educational Duct Tape podcast. Doesn't matter, because you can always go find it by searching up these two wizards in educational duct tape. And we got Jake Miller, who's the master there, who tells us all kinds of magic conjuring tricks that he has. And then today's guest is a third-time educational duct tape guest, Jen Giffen. And Jen, thanks for being on Jake's show and being the other wizard that I'm talking about. And the magic that you're talking about, that I was like, wow, she started talking about sketchnoting. And so Jake and Jen partnered as Jake was writing his book, and Jen, she sketchnoted for every chapter of the book and puts out these sketch notes. I haven't seen them. I'm going to go take a look at them later today, because I can't look right now while I'm recording, and I don't have the tech in front of me to do that and talk to you at the same time. But it's fantastic, Jen, to hear you talk about how you stepped into sketchnoting. I know of Sylvia Duckworth. I have her sketchnoting book. Difficult for me to do because it's a book that I got to read. And so how do you get started? How do you get going? I'll be right back. Hang on. One more thing for September 24, 2021, following on the heels of that last segment, talking about wizards and magic and conjuring. I was talking about Jen Giffen, as she was a guest on Educational Duct Tape with Jake Miller, and they were talking about sketchnoting. And Jen, I like how you pulled back the proverbial curtain. We get that from Wizard of Oz, which is another wizard that, doesn't show how he does his magic to most people, but to the crew of 4, they get to see behind the curtain. And thank you for pulling the curtain back, that we could see, and some of the tools that you're using, your process, a little tiny bit of how you create your sketch notes. The knockoff Apple Pencil, that's a lot cheaper than the full deal. And so I'm going to go get myself one of those for my house. Because, at $180 for a tool that, well, it does amazing things, but it's hard to justify at home. So yes, that's awesome. And the apps that you use on the iPad is fantastic. So I've used a couple of those apps, or just one, a little tiny bit in a workshop about drawing. And I'm going to have to step in and get going on Tayasui School Sketch. Maybe today I'll play with that a little bit more today. Fantastic, Jen. I appreciate you sharing so freely what you do. It's so great. And Jake, thanks for having her on. Thanks for sharing the episode. Even later, you talk about how your schedule's messed up. This guy here doesn't care. I'm so happy that I get to hang out with wizards who talk about their magic and how they do that. So thanks so much. You two are wizards to me. I got a lot of other wizards that I listen to. So I'm not saying you're the only ones, but we are all wizards in our own ways. Also, Jake, your soapbox moment about the iterations of Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen to the state that we hear it today. I appreciate you sharing that story. I'm going to share that with my daughter, who's musical, so that she can understand how music is made and just the journey that Leonard Cohen went through and the song and how it progressed. That's so great. And the Sam remodel discussion at the end of this episode was also fantastic. All right, people, have a great day.
As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.